Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Watson, and committee members. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a real honor for me. My name is Paul Scott, and as you know, I reside in Senator Perry's district. My wife, Mary Ann, and I have 3 children and 7 grandchildren, with one more just around the corner. All of our family lives in Lubbock. All of our kids and their spouses have all gone to Texas Tech University, and so we're all Red Raiders and big fans of our teams. I have 40 years of experience in the automobile business, both as an operator of new car franchises and as an independent auto dealership, Fiesta Motors of Lubbock. At Fiesta, we have 74 hardworking, dedicated people who share our philosophy of taking care of the customer. And that philosophy of service is what brings me here today. With my 40 years of experience in the car business, I believe I can make a unique contribution to the DMV, and I will welcome the opportunity to serve. I was appointed to the DMV board in August of 2018 as a representative for the independent dealer position. Since then, I've attended several meetings at our agency and have met with DMV staff, as well as our executive director, Whitney Brewster. And while I'm relatively new to the board, I have confidence in our agency's ability to handle its current responsibilities as well as any others that may be given to us by the legislature. As a board member, my focus is to represent all Texans on any matter that comes before the board, to help the DMV continue to provide a high level of customer service and consumer protection while maximizing efficiencies for the taxpayers, and to help the department administer fair and transparent regulations for the industries we license and regulate. I want to thank Senator Perry and Governor Abbott for my appointment. I thank each of you for your time and consideration. It's an honor to be here. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for being here and for your service. I want to ask a couple of questions because DMV has just gone through the sunset review.
Yes, sir.
There were recommendations, and the chairwoman and I both served on the Sunset Commission during this last process. So I want to ask a couple of questions about that. One is that I think it's safe to say that it was the Department of Motor Vehicles that prompted a significant discussion related to issues arising out of what many people know as the North Carolina Dental Board case. You may not be familiar with it under those names, but what under that name. But what that is about is regulatory agencies that are dominated by members of or market participants in such a way that it can have a negative impact or an anti-competitive impact. There are a couple of bills floating around the legislature where the concern is that there is an anti-competitive bias at the DMV. You fit a specific statutory requirement, but you are a market participant.
Yes, sir.
Have you had any discussion or about the role that you will play as a market participant and the need for the agency to avoid engaging in what would be anti-competitive conduct?
From a personal perspective, I would say that, as I said, I've just been on the board since August, so what they may have done before I got there, I'm not that familiar with. But as coming to you today and as an individual for this job, I've had experience as operating franchise operations, and I've had experience as an independent. But I don't see my role here in this agency as representing the industry, representing either franchise dealers or independent dealers. I see my role here is to represent the citizens of the state. If there are conflicts there between the industry or a specific part of the industry and what's best for the citizens, I don't think there's much choice. I mean, I think we have to go with what's there for the citizens. That's what we're here for.
Okay. Has there been any training provided to you by the department, any education training or assistance, guidance with regard to, obviously you didn't recognize the North Carolina Dental Board phrase when I said it, or at least that's how it appeared to me.
Yeah.
But with regard to the concept of the North Carolina Dental Board case or market participants engaging in regulatory activities that might be perceived as anti-competitive?
I can tell you that in August we had representatives for the State Attorney General's office come in and work with the board and discussed what types of actions are appropriate by the board, how the board should proceed, how motions should be handled, and we've had that training. I know that our staff has other training scheduled for the board.
You've been involved with the dealers associations, is that right?
Independent Dealers Association, yes, sir.
Are you a member of the Texas Automobile Dealers Association?
No, sir, I'm not. I'm a member of the Texas Independent Auto Dealers.
Independent Auto Dealer, okay.
Now, when I was with the franchise operations, our dealerships were members of TADA, yes, sir.
It has been suggested by some that the automobile dealers associations have, or maybe one in particular, have an undue influence on different members of the board, in part because the board has so many market participants, or at least that's one thought process. Would you comment on that?
I'm not aware of anything that would.
So in your role since August as a member of the board, have you had contact with the Automobile Dealers Association or other associations?
No, sir. I have friends or people I've known over the years from TADA. Representatives from TADA typically come to board meetings. So, you know, I've greeted them and chatted with them prior to the meeting or during breaks or whatever. But
fair enough. After the Department of Motor Vehicles went through the sunset process,
yes,
and recommendations were made and the process was winding down, one of the things that happened at the Department of Motor Vehicles was the board, I think it was the board, it was certainly, I believe it had to be the board, voted to require the general counsel to report directly to the board going around the executive director of the agency. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Were you involved in that?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what your involvement was.
Well, my vote was, I had just come on the board, and so my vote followed the lead of the chairman. I felt like the chairman advised us that he had talked to the Attorney General's office and had talked to folks at the governor's office, and the action that he was proposing was legitimate, legal, and we weren't violating any statute.
How did he communicate that information to you?
I don't recall. I mean, verbally, I'll say that. But I don't remember whether it was in a closed session or it was on the dais, or it wasn't. It would have been inappropriate. It wasn't like a side conversation somewhere.
Okay. Were you informed that there had been no contact with you'd just gone through the sunset process, there had been no contact with the sunset commission staff or the sunset commissioners, such that the agency would have been told that that would be a violation of an across-the-board recommendation that is typically made by the Sunset Commission? Was that ever communicated to you?
No, sir, it was not.
And you, of course, know that subsequent to that, the Sunset Commission voted to make that a part of the proposed statute, is that the report would continue to go from the general counsel to the executive director.
Yes, sir, I'm aware of that.
And you understand the concept of being a policy board and not being involved in the day-to-day operation of the agency, is that right?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you personally understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you give me your 2 cents on how you feel about the recommendation that the driver's license, dealing with driver's licenses, be transferred to DMV?
I think I hear the same things a lot of citizens hear. People hear that people are not satisfied or happy with the current situation, and clearly somebody needs to fix it. So if the legislature and the governor decides that it's going to go to DMV, that'll be our responsibility. As I said in my opening comments, the folks I've met at the agency seem to be very competent. They seem to be dedicated. I have lots of confidence, a great confidence, I would say, that if driver's licenses are given to the DMV, that the DMV will work hard and do a good job. We'll be focused on finding out what the problems are, and we'll be out there to fix them.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.